Hey everyone, so this week we're going to be learning about leaflet maps, and specifically we're going to be focused on maps with markers and pop-ups. A marker is like what you see here on Google. So if I were to go to Google and Google the Washington Monument and then click on the map, it would come up with a marker here, a symbol, this like red teardrop shaped symbol that identifies where the Washington Monument is. A pop-up is the field that comes up that gives you additional information when you either hover over or you click on the point. And in this case, it tells us, the rating for the Washington Monument, 4.7, and then the hours that it's open, that it opens at 9 a.m. Okay, but we're going to be doing this for political science. So we're going to be mapping in this lesson conflict events. And we're going to be giving some information about the location of those events in the pop-up along with a casualty count. Okay, that's the running example for this week's lesson or for this week's module. So let me say a little bit about the data we're going to be working with. We're going to be working with the data from the Uppsala Conflict Data Project, the UCDP. And we're going to be using this disaggregated data set, the UCDP Georeference Event Dataset, GED, global version. So you're going to have to download this basically and save it. In your modules folder, you should have a data folder. So you want to take this and save it in there like I have it here. So first thing we want to do then, like I said, is download the data and put it here in our folder, and then we're going to read it in. So we'll go ahead and say let's read in our UCDP data, and then we'll put a code chunk there. And we'll go library, read R, load read R, and load library, dplyr. And we're going to say we're going to store these data in an object. We'll use read CSV. And we have it stored in that data folder over here, and it's called GED event underscore v22 underscore 1.csv. Okay, and then we can glimpse it. Oh, and it didn't like that because I didn't put the name of the data set in there. So let's go ahead and run that again. Okay, so here we are. Here's the data. So let me tell you a little bit about it and what we're going to use. So we're going to be designing a map that has a marker for each conflict event. First of all, we're going to be looking at the country of Yemen for the year 2021. And we're going to be designing a map that shows a marker where each conflict event occurred. Then when you hover over it, it's going to tell you the name of the town or the location that that conflict event occurred. And then when you click on it, it's going to tell you the date of the conflict event, and it's going to give you a breakdown of the number of battle deaths in different categories. Okay. So there's a lot of data here. First of all, it's 293,634 rows, each of them representing a different event. So we're going to have to filter this down just for the events in Yemen, and then we're probably going to have to filter it down a little bit more from there because there are a lot of events in Yemen in 2021. And 49 columns, so 49 different codings or variables. We have, and let me just kind of zero in on the stuff that we're going to use for this particular example. So like I said, it's going to be a marker that shows us where an event occurred. So we're going to need longitude and latitude here. We're also going to need the description of where the event occurred, or not the description, but where the name of the town or the location where the event occurred, and that's where coordinates, which you see here. And we're also going to make use then of the, like I said, when you click on it, the date that it occurred. So the date start is what we're going to use for that. And then we have all these we have these various estimates for battle deaths. So deaths for side A, deaths for side B, deaths for civilians that were involved, and then deaths of people that were not identified necessarily in the news reporting that they were coding for the event. Okay, so we're going to make use of all of that. We're going to make use of country code to filter out the data set. Let's see, where's the country code? Country ID, and this is the Gleditch Ward country code. I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. We're also going to filter out based on the precision of the location. So there's a coding here for how precise the coding is in terms of the location, how confident they are that it occurred in that particular location. There's also one for clarity of the reporting, event clarity. So we're going to use that to filter the data a little bit further to make sure that we're only using events that we're pretty confident about, or that the coders were pretty confident about. Let's see, I think the dates, I mentioned the start date, country ID, event ID, we're going to keep that. So there's an event ID up here at the top that we're going to just keep in the data set for reference purposes. And that is basically it. So from there we can go ahead and get started. Actually, there's one step we need to do. We're gonna find Yemen's country code, the Gleditch Ward country code for Yemen. Now we could just go and look this up. Sometimes tracking down country codes can be a little tricky because countries split and reunify, like Germany, or in the case of Yemen, there was a North Yemen and a South Yemen, and then they unified to form the modern day Yemen. So there's a nice package actually that specifically looks up country codes, Gleditch Ward and correlates of war country codes for countries, a function in a package that I'm going to show you now. And that package is simply called states. So let's go ahead and load it. And the function here is sfind Yemen, and then we're going to specify that we want to see the first 6 columns here. All right, so this is a subsetting of the country codes for Yemen. Basically, we're saying show us columns 1 through 6 of this data frame. All right, so let's go ahead and run that. Here we go. So we have the country codes associated with all of the different versions of Yemen. We want the Gleditch Ward country code, and we know it's the right one because this version of Yemen is still in existence, started in 1918, and is still going strong, has not ended yet. So that's the country code that we want. So now we can go ahead and wrangle our data using that Gleditch Ward country code. So we'll go ahead and put in a code chunk, label it. So we'll save our Yemen data in an object called GED_Yemen, and we're going to wrangle that out of GED_data, which we just created above. And we're going to pipe that into a filter verb, and we're going to filter it out first of all for country ID, which we just looked up. That's the Gleditch Ward country code, and then we're going to only keep the data for 2021 first of all, But then we're going to further filter it because this is actually quite a large data set, and the number of events for Yemen in 2021 is also astronomical. So we want to filter it down a little bit further for our exercise here. So we're going to do date start less than 2021, and we'll just use the first 2 months, January and February 2021. Oh 0301. And we're going to use this where underscore PREC, or precision variable, to further filter the data. So where precision scores of 3 and above are a little less precise, whereas scores of 1 and 2, the coders are more sure of where those occurred. So we're going to keep the events with a where precision score of less than 3, and we're going to keep similarly events with a event clarity of 1. So if the reporting is clear, and that should be that for the filtering. Now we want to create a new variable. So you saw in the printout here, we have all of these different categories of deaths, but we don't have a total death count. So we're going to create that. And we're going to call it deaths. And this is just going to be a sum of deaths A deaths B, deaths civilians, and deaths unknown. Okay. All right. Now we're going to select some variables for analysis. We're going to keep event ID. We're going to keep the country ID. We're going to have our date that we're going to use in the pop-up, and we're going to call it date, and we're going to use the start date of the event. And we're going to call deaths A government deaths. Side A is the government. And then rebel deaths is side B. And civilian deaths, civilians, but we'll call it civilian deaths instead, more intuitive name. Deaths, which we just made, that's total deaths. We'll keep the where coordinates because we're going to need that. That's the name of the place where it happened. And latitude and longitude. Actually, let's change the name of where coordinates to just place. That's more intuitive. And then the last step here is actually pretty crucial. We need to use the SF package, the simple features package, and we're going to use this function called st as sf to take our coordinates and turn them into a simple features column in our data. So we're taking the coordinates and we're turning them into simple features. All right. So coords equals c, longitude, latitude. All right, and that should be it. We'll go ahead and glimpse the data when that's done. Let's see if it'll run. And there we go. There are our data for Yemen. for the first 2 months of 2021, and you can see we have 83 events, and then we have the 9 columns that we selected. All right, and now we're going to use this to make our leaflet map in the next lesson.